Actually, wait a second. Let me just check one thing. See if this wasn't working the other day. Test, test, test. Oh, why is this? Is this really that quiet? I know that was loud, but for some reason, this other recording software that I have is like.
Which one are you using?
So I was just throwing on Audacity. I mean, I have Logic as well, but um, let's see. Hold on a second. Let's just see how loud that was. Oh wait, everything has its own custom inputs and outputs set.
Yeah, I this is another thing that I've been teaching myself. So I taught myself photography.
Uh huh.
And I was like, it'd be really fun to, talk to people and just get feedback. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I'll have to teach myself how to produce this too. Okay. So I'll figure that out too. Why not? I've got time.
um, one second. Let me just. Okay, I'm just gonna record it on my end anyway, just because sometimes it turns out better quality.
Okay.
So I'll just, and if it might not be, maybe it won't be worth it, but I'll just upload it to you, and you can, if you want to use it instead, it's fine.
Okay, awesome. Well, everybody, I'm Justin. This is a friend of mine, Chris Grace. You're gonna recognize his face, probably from Superstore, Pen 15. Good Lord, you've got quite the IMDb.
The other day, somebody said, "What other stuff have you been on?" And I was like, "Oh, Pen 15, Broad City, Idiot Sitter, Mr. Mayor, blah blah." And I laid out all these things, and someone was like, "And This Is Us," and I was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot I was on This Is
Oh
Us."
yeah.
I was like, "Well, that's an entitled actor response from just like, oh, I forgot I was on like the biggest hit on NBC."
Yeah, that happens. So, like I was telling you before we started recording, is I speak to a gentleman and I'm like, do you remember doing this? He's like, oh yeah, I remember that now. No,
I
so I get it.
Yeah. It's crazy to say that I like am forgetting that because when I was growing up, the idea that I would even be on television at all was like it's still very surreal to see myself on television and to know that like millions of people are seeing me. It's a very strange feeling.
Well, I mean, did you grow up with the intention that you're going to be an entertainer, or did you grow up with other intentions? Like, did you have a different career path you thought you were going to go down?
No, I never did. I had other careers that I did just to pay the bills. But I didn't have any other careers for the sake of like I didn't have anything else that I wanted to do. The only other thing was when I was in high school, I was going to. So when I was deciding whether or not to major between drama or piano. So I might have gone into piano at one point, but um, my piano teacher basically said it was too hard. Um, or actually, what she really said was that I wasn't suited for it, which is she was right about because when I used to take piano lessons, they would give you this little card that you're supposed to fill out. You're supposed to do 30 minutes of practice a day and write it on this little card and get your parent to sign it to show that you practiced. And I would always end up right before the lesson, like asking my mom to sign it. I hadn't practiced at all the entire week. I mean, I took piano lessons from third grade to like 10th grade. And I think just the lessons themselves, I ended up being okay at piano and having to cram for them, but I never had a like a disciplined approach to it. So my piano teacher was like, you shouldn't major in piano because if piano majors play way more than 30 minutes a day. They play like hours and hours a day.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I didn't have any other um, careers that I could have gone into. Everyone in my family was engineers. And I could have done that. I like this, I guess will sound arrogant, but I always kind of felt like, I mean, I could do it if I wanted to. Like, I ended up becoming like a web designer and web developer. And that was just because I liked computers, but it wasn't, and it actually, you could see that as a career. Like, I had a full time, like, if I had a full time government job as a web developer
Oh
that
wow.
paid decently. Actually, probably that last year in that job was the most I've ever made in one year. Maybe the second most I've ever made in one year, and would now be like a six figure job. Um, and but it was a government bureaucracy job, and it was the kind of thing where everybody was always, literally everyone just would talk about when they were going to retire.
Oh, wow.
Because it was that kind of job, like you work it and then you retire at 59 and a half, and then you get this pension for the rest of your life, this government pension.
Right.
But I was, um, what, like 28 at the time or whatever it was. It was some crazy age where I was like, I'm not going to just sit here for the next 30 years. Like that's not going to be good enough for me. I don't think.
Yeah, no, there's some things like, okay, you can definitely see yourself doing for an extended period of time, and then there's things that you get into that like your heart just isn't in it. Like if you think
Yeah.
about it, it's just kind of like, I don't know if I could do that for like 20, 30 years until I'm ready to
No.
just retire and do nothing, you know?
No, I mean, the main thing that I like to do is like solve creative problems, and so being a web developer has a lot of that. But once you are sort of entrenched in a site and you're just maintaining it, and working for the government is a very not dynamic place to work in terms of, oh, what are we going to do with the site this year? Like, what messaging are we going to? It's not like that at all. It's like the main uh, good trait of a government website is that it doesn't go down.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
not really a
that's a
place
good
that you're
thing.
going to experiment with. So,
Well,
um,
that's it's interesting you said that because when I was in the army, they're like, all right, so we got this, we've, like you were just saying, we've got the website up and it works.
yeah,
That was it. That was it. And I know the people that would work on it, and they would be like, yeah, well, we could do this, we could implement this function, and they're like, no, 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 we're good. It works. Just leave it alone.
yeah, yeah, and probably similar to a structured organization like that. This place was people. It was more advantageous to just not make a mistake that would cause you to be disciplined or cause you to lose your job
Mm,
or get in trouble than to, because in the end it wasn't like we were a functioning like Silicon Valley business that depended on getting to satisfy our web customers, to survive. It was just like mostly an informational site that people really needed, but like they were with the government, it's kind of like um, they don't have that many other choices. If you have a bad restaurant website, it might genuinely hurt your business because people won't be able to like see the menu or see your hours or
right,
something.
right.
But if you're a government bureaucracy and you don't have any competition, then it's kind of like let's just keep it things status quo if we can.
Yep. No, that makes sense.
And that
So,
was fine for I was there for 8 years, but the prospect of being there another 30 years just to get my retirement was not appealing to me.
no, that's not an appealing thought at all.
No.
So when did you get into acting and performing?
So I've been doing it the whole time. So that was my day job to like support myself through that while I was living in New York City. Um, and I think I was starting to feel a little bit like that web career was taking too much precedence over the other stuff that I did. But I did stand up comedy and improv comedy and theater and stuff through ever since like junior high school.
So you
Um,
you've always had that bug.
yeah, I've always been interested in it, and I guess in a way, comedy and acting is the subject matter that I just have an infinite interest in. So I am interested in a lot of things. I have a lot of hobbies that I get into, and some of them start to run out a little bit, or I don't find myself compelled by them as much as they were when I first discovered them. But you know, playwriting, sketch writing, comedy, acting, this whole genre, whatever this is, theater, is I just always have thoughts about it and ways
Well,
to
you
make
you've
things
got it.
better.
You've got a genuine passion for it. You've got a love for it. So I mean that's the
Yeah, it's funny
that's the
because
difference.
I don't see myself as some like extremely passionate person, but I have like a strong continued curiosity and interest in performance. So
I love
I
how you
guess
phrase
you
that.
call that a passion.
I think by definition that's passion.
Well, well, what the thing is that in high school, people would say, if you have a passion for anything, if you could be happy doing anything except acting, you should do it. And I was always like, I don't know if that's true. I think I might be happy. I never had that, like, I've got to be an actor, I've got to be on the stage, but it is the thing that I've continued to do my whole life. And it's the thing that I could talk about forever. And I love watching performances and analyzing that. So, but I don't think there's been a single point in my life where I was like, Father, I've got to get on the stage.
Well, it's okay. So it's kind of like photography for me, and then I guess now it's my podcast. Just learning to get out of my comfort zone. Like, this is something I've wanted to do.
Yeah.
Hello, Mike. Yes, I beat the. Stop it.
That mic is in your comfort zone.
It's in my comfort zone, in my bubble, and I've been in quarantine too long, so it's clearly too close. But with photography, it was something that I was interested in, but kind of. It was not really supported. There were people saying, yeah, you could go join the army, you could go do this, and that would be a definite income, and maybe just keep that as a hobby. And I was like,
how many years were you in the army?
I was in for 6. I ended up getting out. I've had a few heart procedures, and I broke a bunch of stuff, and then they were just like, you're much too broken, you can't stay in. So I retired, and that's when I got heavy into photography and really started pursuing.
I don't know a lot about the military, so do you have an income for that now?
I do. So what happens is that for me, I'm unemployable due to my disability. So between migraines, heart problems, back issues, they're just like, yeah, you're unfit to work. So you're retired. You need to stay at home. So now what I do without generating income is do the things that I always wanted to do. So be it concert photography, I was at the pre-release for Tyler Glenn's Excommunication album. I've done a whole bunch of things now that I've always wanted to do. So yeah, it's just me and the wife and the 2 boys, and my son's my son Nick is in New York. He's stationed up there.
Oh, and, so he's also in the army?
Yeah, he's active duty army. My son Jacob apparently had some back issues, so he wasn't able to stay in. So he's home pursuing his degree in IT.
Okay.
And my wife works from home, so we're just doing the whole thing.
Cool.
Now
I don't know why Utah is some strange hotbed of social media for some reason.
It's weird. Utah's weird.
Ever since Shay Carl was on the scene.
Since everything, Utah on the surface is it's very LDS, and it's kind of like this shell, right? Mm-hmm. And you break through the shell and you start seeing little bits of nightclub, and you see little bits of culture, and you start seeing more the more you chip away.
Yeah.
And Utah is interesting. Like, we lived in South Carolina, we've lived in Georgia, we've lived in Colorado.
Wait, are these all at army places?
Some of them, yes. South Carolina, no. That was to be near my wife's family. And
is Georgia Fort Bragg?
Yeah, Fort Bragg and Fort Stewart. I was stationed at Fort Stewart for 4 years.
Okay, gotcha.
And yeah, Utah's interesting. We always end up coming back to Utah. I think it's just because it's kind of in between everything. So it's an easy travel to get to California, to Washington, and it's not too far to get back to the South if we really, really desire to go back.
Why would you?
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm from Texas, so I can say that. Although Texas, we don't really consider ourselves part of the South.
No.
Texans are like, Texas is, we're our own thing.
That's kind of what I've read and what I understand. I do want to go to Texas for the barbecue, so that's definitely a thing I need to go experience. Because out of all the places I've been, I don't think I've been to Texas.
Oh,
and I've been to a lot of places.
So you, what I meant to say was that like there's a lot of um, video production in Utah because I know that BYU has these like their own like TV channels where they do like entire sitcoms and stuff. But also, there's a lot of YouTube people that I've just noticed. There's a lot of social media creators that seem like very activated and energetic and productive that are from Utah.
Yeah, it's something about Utah. It does give you the energy. There's a lot of automotive YouTube content creators out here.
Huh.
There's a lot of well, mainly automotive YouTube, mainly because that's all I watch.
Oh,
so
do
so
you watch the Straight Pipes?
I have
I like those
watch
guys.
I watch Stradman because he's actually
Okay.
just down the road, and I've got he's kind of an acquaintance. So it'd be interesting to meet up with him. But like I was telling you, there's so many different things that go on here,
Well, there's
and
probably good like mountains to drive and get good footage of a car, right?
there's the mountains are literally right in the backyard. So we
Yeah.
were talking before, like if you get a chance and you come out, go up through Cottonwood Canyon because
Uh-huh.
it's gorgeous, and just for a drive or a picnic or whatever.
And
There's
what
lots.
altitude are you at? Am I
Uh,
going to be short of breath while I'm there?
no, it's not like Colorado where
Okay.
you're immediately under the sun,
I
and
did a play in I want to say Aspen, Colorado, and we had to have oxygen at intermission to,
yeah,
to
yeah, that's
like
one of
actually
those.
every time we went off stage there was an oxygen tank for us to like
You're like, you're gonna need this.
yeah.
Yeah. When I was stationed there, I was there, and I felt like I could never catch my breath.
Hmm.
And they're like, okay, now I think it's a problem. That's when they started figuring out I had heart issues. They're like, that's
Oh.
probably why you can't breathe. I'm like, all right.
LaMarcus Aldridge of the Brooklyn Nets today had a surprise retirement from the NBA
Oh, really?
because of an irregular heartbeat. I guess he's had it for a while and he keeps track of it, but apparently the game the other night he checked like he had some arrhythmia or something, and then like today he was just like I quit, I'm
Yeah.
retiring.
At some point, you just got to do what's best for you.
Well, those guys I think are because there have been NBA players that have like died like during a game, and I think because it's not a casual sport, like you're pushing yourself pretty hard.
Yeah.
The level those guys are at, they're probably
I could
not.
never do it.
Yeah.
It's too much running.
I mean, I could have done it, but I wanted to go into acting instead. I'm a 5'8". I could have dominated the league. So,
You could have done well.
sure. I remember I got in a big argument one time with somebody who was saying like you can do whatever you want to do in life. And I remember thinking like it doesn't really matter how much I want to be in the NBA. I don't think that I don't think there is a world where I could have worked hard enough to be in the NBA. Because yes, there have been players that are 5'8" in the NBA, but those players are, people like Spud Webb who can dunk, who has insane
That's a
vertical
name I
leap,
hadn't heard in a while.
or Muggsy Bogues who's insanely quick. Like they're gifted in other physical ways that I am not. I just
Right.
remember just feeling like, not everything is just. I mean, the vast majority of things people want to do, if you work hard enough, you can do. But there are some things that you can't. Like, not anybody can just be like, I want to win the gold medal in the 100-meter dash.
Yeah, not everybody's going to do that. You can work really hard at it, but more than likely
Yeah.
it's not going to happen.
I'm actually fascinated by a lot of college, particularly like athletes that are like D1, um, that were basically people that were so much better than you or me. I don't know if you played any sports growing up, but like, you know, the guy that like you play pickup basketball with them and they're just insanely good, like they just dominate you, and then they hit this level where they like see like a pro player and they're like, oh, there's a big gap between that person and me. Like I'm always fascinated by that. What does that feel like for uh a swimmer to be like Michael Phelps's like worst time is 3 seconds faster than my best time ever. I'm probably not going to make the Olympics. That reckoning with it, because that's not really something that happens in the arts.
You don't
Because
think so?
not really, because there's no objective measure of like how good of an actor someone is.
Yeah, no,
Um,
that's true. Okay.
and also in show business, it's like really, as long as someone has enough money and wants to make something, they can make it. If they want to, if I forgot what his name is, the guy who made The Room. If he wants to make
Oh,
The Room, then he's gonna make The Room, and someone's gonna get to be the lead in that movie. And you can say like I was the lead in a movie that's like a cult hit to this day. Tommy Wiseau.
yeah, 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 yeah. No, I get that. I think it's interesting that you were so you don't do any computer. You're fully head on into your acting career, and
Uh, I only do occasional web design, just like if I have to, like literally when my husband and I got married, I had to put up a website that was like, here's the details of where to go and all that stuff. And um, web design evolves at such a rate that even when I was out of it for 2 years, I came back and I was like, I don't understand what technologies people are using. It's changed a lot since, because I started web designing when it like all started. So like I was like hand coding websites in a text editor in HTML, and that's basically what this wedding website that I made for my husband and I was. And it did not look good. um, and now there's all these like frameworks, and there's all these JavaScript engines and stuff, and basically ways of thinking about how you put a website together that I just don't get. Actually, I basically got out of websites when mobile phones came around. So the idea of designing a website that looks good on like an infinite number of views, like ratios and resolutions and stuff, that just makes my head hurt. So I'm kind of glad I got out of it.
it's not necessarily the same thing. But I try to keep up with music because I'm trying to teach myself also to be a DJ and stuff like that. Because
Uh-huh.
my friends do it. I'm like, how hard could it be? And I'm finding that music changes at such a rate that I can't catch up to it. Like there's so much that happens within such a short time span
Uh-huh.
that it's very hard to keep up with what's new and current and relevant and what's outdated. And
Yeah.
it's like me building a computer.
Well, all you got to do is put on Spotify and put on the top 100 US hits, and it'll be because I do that occasionally, and it'll be 50 songs you've never heard of. But occasionally there's some good ones.
Yeah, once in a while.
Do you know Driver's License?
No.
Oh, that's the big
What?
hit for a song called Driver's License.
Oh boy. Okay. See, I'm out of date. This is what happens when you get over 40.
Okay, wait. Let me. I'm gonna quiz you. I'm gonna quiz you on some people. And so, have you heard Billie Eilish?
Yes.
Okay. So this driver's license. I'm sure you know what WAP is.
Oh yeah.
By the way, multiple versions of cover versions of that song from Utah creators. There's multiple versions on YouTube where it's worship and prayer.
Oh no.
For a WAP.
No. What?
Yeah. Everybody.
I'm
look
gonna
that
have to
up on
send it
YouTube.
to my aunt. This is WAP. There you go.
That's the real WAP. Worship and prayer.
Make her head spin a little bit.
Um, I forget who. There's a whole bunch of. I mean, you know, Lil Nas X.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
So you're
His
keeping up.
his new video.
Yeah.
I loved that video.
Yeah, it's great.
It was so good.
Well, it's very silly because I feel like the things he's doing in that video are really not any more controversial than like what Madonna did in that Like a Prayer. Remember,
Yeah,
Like a
when
Prayer was a huge.
was that when she had the big pointy boobs?
No, like that's. I believe that's the.
Like a virgin?
Yeah, maybe. But that's so. But Like a Prayer was when I think it was implied that she was like having sex with Jesus or something.
Oh yeah.
It
I
was a
remember
big.
that one.
It was a big deal at the time. But also in the with hindsight, it's like none of that really matters. Also, the Catholic Church hasn't like crumbled after that video came out.
No,
Just
they're
like
still
nothing's
standing
gonna happen
strong.
with this. Yeah, nothing's gonna happen with this Lil Nas X video.
You know, and
Except
shoes
that-
and whatnot.
Oh, entered the lottery to win those shoes, but I did not win.
Oh no. Well, they
I-
only
I-
had 666 pairs, so
Yeah. I woke up late the day that they were for sale. And by the way, they were expensive. They were like $1,200 or something. But
Wow.
I did kind of think that, and this is borne out to be true, that if you got one of the original pairs for like $1,000, that in a week they would be worth like three, which is true. Like on eBay right now, they're selling for that much. But then he had a lottery for the 666th pair, but I did not win that.
That's crazy.
But I mean, the whole thing. I think it's hilarious because it's just. I think what's fun about it is it sort of harkens back. I know people see it as like this horrible, evil, corrupting video or whatever, but to me, it's actually kind of funny and innocent in the sense that it kind of harkens back to the controversies in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, where like Sinead O'Connor like ripped a picture of the Pope on
Mm-hmm.
SNL, and it was like such a big deal, and really is not a big deal compared to like actual problems happening in the world. But it was these things that people would get, like Janet Jackson at the Super Bowl,
Yeah.
is so. If you look at the problems we have today, the real problems we have today, it's
Those are so
like
minuscule.
yeah, and like it would be kind of nice to have that be like the thing we're all worried about is, oh my gosh, she showed her nipple on the
Yeah,
Super Bowl
Janet's
show.
nipple showed up on television. If
Yeah,
that was the only thing we had to worry about.
especially when like this video is obviously meant to provoke controversy, like or not. I mean, he definitely wanted to put out this message too of like if I was a kid and saw this, I'd be like, oh my god, like this is like a major artist is like being very gay in this video. That would have
Mm-hmm.
made a difference for sure. But the controversial elements of it are so like tame to me. Like the guy that's playing the devil in it looks like he's from Legend. You know, it's like Tim Curry in Legend. Um, that I think it's kind of innocent and fun, really, because like the point I was trying to make was like the Janet Jackson thing at the Super Bowl. Even when it happened, but especially now, it's like obviously that was on purpose. Like there's no way that that was some genuine mistake. That wasn't. It was just a thing that they tried as a stunt that kind of went bad, I guess, and then they ended up dumping all this blame on Janet Jackson instead of. Instead of Justin Timberlake and her like owning up that it was like a pro
Yeah.
wrestling fake thing, right? Um, but it's funny to me that people still get so angry about these things that are obviously like manufactured PR things.
I think that what he did was brilliant in the fact that it's causing people to have a reaction for one, and then
Yeah.
two, being forced to have those conversations with be it their children or even with one another. You
Well,
know,
and the other thing is that youth culture is the whole point of youth culture is to like piss off the parents. So the artists have to find new ways to do it, and he found one for sure.
yeah, shock and awe,
And
shock and awe works.
and WAP is like that too. WAP is a hilarious example of that because all those TikTok videos of children playing WAP for their parents and watching the reactions, those are the funniest videos. And half the time the parents it reminds me of when friends of mine from junior high and high school when they started to have kids. And I remember a friend of mine who had her daughter, and her daughter was at this point had grown up. Her daughter was maybe like 10, 11, 12, and she said profanity or something, and my friend was like very strict about like you can't say those words, whatever. And I remember just thinking, like, was with you when you were 12. When we were 12 years old, you said worse things than this.
You were awful.
Well, I mean, I just remember thinking it's funny how people want to sort of reimpose like these standards that I know for a fact that they themselves didn't follow when they were 12.
Yeah, well, like me raising my boys, I'd let them slip and get away with it. If it got a little too carried away, it'd be kind of like, kind of chill it out a little bit. But typically, I tried to let them have their freedom of speech and whatever they had in their mouths that they needed to get out in a
Yeah.
colorful fashion, then I let them do it. But if it got out of hand, then just let them know. But
Well, and also they're probably going to do more by following your example, right? Than what you
yeah,
actually. So I don't know how often you use profanity in the house.
a lot,
Do you really?
a lot. It's the whole army in me. If I can't figure out a decent way to get my point across, it always comes out and just a slew of disgusting things.
Well,
So
then
so
it
I
might
try
be
to
hard
I
for you to then argue for them to not speak that way.
yeah, see that's why I kind of let them do what they wanted, because my wife was the same way. She's like, yeah, the things that come out of your mouth. I'm like, no, yeah, you have a point. I get that. So, what have you been doing for the past year for for your quarantine?
I haven't really been doing much. Well, I don't know when this comes out, but Saturday, the 17th of April, will be 2 weeks after my second Pfizer shot. So basically, March 11th, 2020, I did an improv show at the Upright Citizens Brigade here in Los Angeles. And then the next day, the theater was shut down. And between that March 11th and this April 17th, um, I haven't gone out really to do hardly anything. Um, I've run errands and I've eaten at Chipotle twice on their outdoor patio once that was allowed. And then last week, my husband and I went to the Taste of Universal, um,
What is
which is
that?
like a food festival at Universal Studios theme park. So that was fun. Um, but that was the most we have been outside at all in the whole year, in any kind of place with other people. So other than that, this year I've been like literally doing podcasts, or I've been pursuing hobbies of mine. I will say I've started writing a newsletter.
Oh, nice.
Uh, so I would love for people to follow that. Um,
We will
and
definitely link the video in YouTube.
Yeah, and that's just my thoughts about. Basically, I wanted to get back in the habit of writing on a regular basis. So that's a way for me to do it. So I put that out twice a week, with just my thoughts on whatever. But and I do acting jobs occasionally. So I acted on a couple of things. I was in an episode of Superstore this year, and I actually shot a commercial from my house because they just needed my face for like CGI purposes. So I did that, and then I did shoot on a couple of sets this year, basically this year and the end of last year, and that was interesting because it's very exhausting. Um,
Was it really controlled?
yes,
I'm
very
asking because
controlled. So one
uh,
of my jobs, I ended up working at that job for about 90 minutes total, and to do that, I got 3 COVID tests,
wow.
like before, the day before, and the day of. I got like rapid COVID tests, and then it was there's a very regimented system of who is allowed to be on set at any given time. And then you're wearing a mask the whole time until they say rolling, and then someone runs up with a little bucket. You put your mask in there, you shoot the scene, and then they say cut, and then come back with the bucket, and you put the mask back on.
I can tell you, a buddy of mine did an episode of Lucifer during this whole lockdown, and the way he described it is just exactly how you described it. It was
Yeah.
just it was very yeah, I'm happy for you guys to have work, but that seems like such a pain.
Well, it's
But I
it's
mean, it's necessary.
it's necessary. The issues are that it's very slow because I believe like the crew is one part of that regiment. They go in and they set their lights and move stuff around, and art does their thing, but then the actors can't be there while that's happening. So there's a lot of like everyone leave the set, this group comes on, does their work, they leave, the next group. And that's not how it would happen before. It would be, if they had to make slight adjustments, they'd just do them while you were there. So that's slower. It is much more tense because you you find yourself habitually like like the last thing I shot, there were like 15 children as background, and so there were a lot of children running around that were not always the best about keeping their masks on. And so that made me a little anxious. And then of course we shot like 2 takes where the kids forgot to take their masks off, so totally unusable. So it's slower, you're more tense because of it. And I imagine it has to be the case that it's way more expensive for them because so like the thing that I shot, I took three rapid like 15-minute COVID tests, which I think are like $250 each or something like that. And not everyone gets the rapid tests. Like if you're a regular crew member, I believe they get the 48-hour test or whatever, but they're getting a test every single day. So for an entire season, I don't know how many. Let's say something is 22 episodes, and so you're talking about like over 100 working days, whatever.
That's insane.
Times how many people are in the crew and cast
I
every
mean, you're
single day they're
talking
getting
at,
COVID test.
hundreds of thousands of
Yeah,
dollars.
just to like make what a year ago you could have made without any of that expense.
Right.
So I
Did,
think
did you did you have do you still have the same interactions with your coworkers, or is that a little more stress too because you've got to
oh
maintain your
it's
social distance and
it is more stressful because I was much more cognizant of. For example, there was one scene I shot this year where I gave somebody a set of keys, and I was just way more cognizant of like I'm not actually going to give her the keys. I'm going to put them on top of this cardboard box, and then when the take is over, I'm going to take. She's not going to touch it. I take it, put it back in my hand. She never touches it, but I'm going to give the impression that I'm giving it to her. But then the other weird thing is that the if the show doesn't have the premise that the world has COVID.
hmm
So, for example, Superstore did. So, a lot of Superstore scenes, people had masks on, so they could justify social distancing. But the other thing I shot didn't live in that world. So, there's a scene where like there's me and someone else having an argument. We're only like 6 inches away from each other. So it's also weird to be like we go through all these precautions, then I take off the mask, and then now she's just yelling her breath into my mouth. So like luckily I had already had one shot of the vaccine before I did that, so I felt a
yeah.
little more confident. And the shows at this level, they have so much COVID testing that I felt fine, you know. But it is weird to be engaging with someone that closely after you've taken all these other precautions.
So how does your snack table work? How does craft services work? Like, is
Craft
it
service is
everything?
way worse.
Is it all individually packaged stuff, or is it just
Yes. This is this is probably the worst thing that happened during the entire lockdown is craft services is not as good as it used to be. Um, uh, which is actually kind of funny because now pretty much everybody's like the whole surfaces contaminating and getting infected by surfaces is kind of like not a thing. Like basically the science is now just like, you don't have to wipe your groceries down. You don't. It's sure it's nice for you to wash your hands, but if you sit at a chair that someone else sat at, you're not going to get it from the surface, right? So really, the whole craft services thing could have just been the way it always has been. It would
hmm
have been fine. So here's the thing: is now it's all individually packaged, but you have to ask for it. So I don't know if you guys have buffet restaurants in Utah that are
yeah,
up and running.
I don't know if they're up and running, but they're gross. So.
A lot of them. Okay, hard to disagree on that. No. um, the ones that are up and running in LA, the buffet restaurants, you can't dish out your own food. There's someone there to like put
To
it
serve
onto
it
your
to
plate.
you.
Yeah, that's how this craft services is now. So there's a guy behind like a plexiglass thing, and you say, "I would like some sun chips." Then he hands them to you. I would like some chicken salad, and it's a prepackaged. They made it; it's homemade, but they've portioned it out into a small Tupperware, right? So this is the great decline of Crafty during COVID is that it completely takes away the fun of craft services where you can just walk over there and browse on your own and not have the mostly internal guilt of like I'm gonna take 7 Pop-Tarts because now you have to engage with a human being and ask them for 7 Pop-Tarts.
Oh. Mm.
uh, you know, so before you could just have your diabetes in private,
Yeah,
and
you
now
can
you have
just get it on your own time. Yeah,
yeah.
I get that.
But now I even feel bad going to Crafty a second or third time. By the way, I don't think they give a shit.
Yeah,
Whatever.
they probably don't, but it's
No.
no, it's the whole you know they know your face and
Yeah, yeah.
they know you were there.
You just don't want someone watching you, you know, take like sometimes I used to just get like three Coke Zeros at a time because I liked having one in the dressing room, and now I'm always just like I'll just take one.
I just have one. It's fine.
It's probably better for me, but I
So
mean, craft
after,
services is a thing that you do when you're bored because there's so much boredom on set when you're working.
yeah, so the one thing I've learned is that you guys sit a lot, and
Yes.
that like in between your scenes or your takes or whatever, there's a lot of downtime. Is there anything you do in your downtime?
By the way, this is they always say this. They always say like it's like the military. Is that true in the military too?
Oh yeah, yeah. You hurry up, you get there, you wake up nice and early, and you get dressed, and you do your PT, and then you sit there. So like if you're going on a deployment, they're like, all right, we need you there by 0500,
Yeah.
and you're like, okay, so you get there at 4:30 in the morning,
I
and then you
think
sit.
I think that there's some I don't think I'm making this up. I think there is some historical basis on like um filmmaking processes coming from because like basically France is where like cinema started
Hmm.
and that some of their workflow was based on like military regimentation.
Oh wow.
Because like also French kitchens are like that too, with like a discrete chain of command, and you know everything's like sort of tasked out in very specific ways. So because like essentially film sets are like little mobile military units in that way. So yes, there is a lot of waiting, but I just remember they always said like it's like the military, hurry up and wait. And it's like, but I always also think like, why is this modeled on the military? But I guess it's for efficiency.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't know why.
it's like there's an
I think
efficiency.
it's more like an accountability thing. So they want to make sure that they've got everybody there and where they need to be, and they'd
Yeah.
much rather them be there earlier than rushing to the last point. You
Well,
know?
so I think it's there's efficiency for the whole project, but they don't care about efficiency if any individual person is sitting around for 8 hours. Um, because they would rather call me in at 5:30 in the morning, even though if you really look at the schedule, I'm probably not working until 2:30 p.m.
Right.
But they're like, I mean, I can see it in a when I have produced things. Actually, I see it from the other side because to me, when I produce something, I'm like, I'm paying that actor the same whether they show up at 5:30 in the morning or at 1:30 p.m. when we think their scene's going to shoot, and there are days where something happens and you're like, we got to flip the schedule around. They got to shoot their scene first, and there's no reason to then be like, well, we didn't call him in because we didn't think we needed him until later. You know, the actors are the most, probably not the most, but we're one of the people that like the time doesn't really matter. Our time is not high on the list of priorities for
Yeah.
that.
No. I mean, I kind of understand that, and I understand it's frustrating for you guys, but I kind of see,
I
like
mean,
from.
I'm whatever about it. It's uh since I have gotten to a level where I get a trailer, which is
What?
yeah, everyone gets a trailer. I mean, not everyone, but like people get. There's very small, but like you get a trailer, so you have a thing you can nap on. Now, most of the trailers I get are small enough that the thing you nap on is like not completely either long enough or wide enough to comfortably nap on. You know, it's like a bench that like kind of folds down or something, and it's.
Right.
I think I'm at the level now where I will at least get a third of a trailer. Um, I forget what they call it, a three something. I think it's called a three banger or something like that. But you know, as you get more power, you can be like, I have to have a two double banger or something, because I occasionally on some things that I've worked, I'll get there and they'll be like, oh, there's not many people called in today, so you can have this very
So
nice trailer.
you kind of get an upgrade.
You get an upgrade, and then you get like a very nice, like whole little
So
apartment.
to one trailer, are you saying they section that one trailer off, or it's just a smaller trailer?
The trailers are all the same size, but if you're the star, you get the entire trailer to yourself.
Wow.
If you're, a couple rungs down, you split 50% of the trailer, and then
Okay.
it gets smaller and smaller.
Okay. All right.
So,
See, that's
uh,
interesting. I learn something new every day.
yeah, and then I,
And they're
I,
called bangers.
I think they're called. I want to say they're called a triple banger, but
I'm such a child.
if I'm, if I'm smart, I remember to bring, like I'll bring a Rubik's cube to just like practice or something to do. A lot of people knit. Um,
Do you have any like I know a lot of actors turn to being magicians.
that's so
Is
funny. I
is that
actually
something you've done?
I do bring a deck of cards and practice. It depends. I will bring a deck of cards to practice, but there have been times I've been more focused. That's one of those things I've been on and off focused during lockdown because I was very much into magic, and then kind of fell off of it and sort of kind of back around to it. But being in a trailer is a very good time to work on your double push offs, and your palming a card, that kind of stuff.
So you need to talk to Adam. You need to
Oh,
talk to Adam Wiley.
does he do
He's
that as well?
freaking fantastic. He'd probably have a lot of advice for you. But I
Okay.
also I found out so a buddy of mine, Hal Sparks. I didn't know he was a magician.
Oh, I think I did know that.
I didn't know that. So I'd been talking to Hal for probably a few years at this point, and I'm
Uh
like,
huh.
Hal, why do all these magicians know you? He's like, oh, well, I'm a magician. I was like,
Yeah.
what? Well, I didn't know anything about that.
Yeah, I never really describe myself as a magician. I'm more of a hobbyist, but I have lots of magician friends, and I like do enough magic that they would say that I should say that I'm a magician, but I am not. Because I never have like ready to like if I needed to show a trick to somebody, I'd need to like I can't off the top of my head be like, "Here, let
You'd
me show
need
you
to
something."
you'd need to prep for it.
Yeah, actually, I really love magic, and actually, my main interest in it is that I want to like write the scripts around tricks. I love that stuff. Like I love coming up with like the premises for them, because a lot of magicians are a little outdated with the way they approach
Yeah.
performance or their relationship to the audience. But I think I had heard that about House Sparks. I auditioned 2 or 3 years ago for a pilot that was being co-produced by Larry Wilmore
Oh,
from
nice.
and he is a very like accomplished magician. So that was fun. I really wanted to get that job because I wanted to like hang out with him. But there's a fair amount of actor magician. I believe Jason Sudeikis is now a member of the Magic Castle. I
Yeah,
think.
there's a lot of people and I've been invited out to go to the Magic Castle with between Hal and Adam.
Uh huh.
And so I'm excited to go out and
Yeah,
just
it should. It's great.
and to check it out. Have you been?
Yeah, I've been plenty of times. I've auditioned for the castle twice and failed twice, because I wanted to be there as a magician member. Because if you get in as a magician member, you get access to the library, which is like this incredible resource
Oh,
of
that'd be
like
cool.
yeah. But it's funny because magicians are uh because magic is I'm trying to phrase this in a way that's not offensive. It's not as high on the status list of arts as like even actors, which I don't consider like super high, right? Or
Right.
musicians.
No,
The
I
magic
get that.
the magic industry as a whole is like a little bit more of like a redheaded stepchild of show business, right? So but I think they're amazing artists, and really like there's a lot of interesting people in that field, but it's uh, not as hard to like meet a famous magician as you think it is. Like any magician that you think is really great, like you see him on Penn and Teller, um, like it's not that hard to meet them socially, but also vast majority of them, if you wanted to pony up, I don't know, $200, you could get them to like teach you a lesson on Zoom or something. Like
Yeah, yeah.
um, it's actually funny because I used to and I've played a lot of ping pong in my life, and I've gone through several phases. Actually, was getting back into ping pong when lockdown happened, so I have to get back into it because they all got shut down. But I have gone through periods in my life where I like took lessons, and ping pong is actually similar to magic in that you can get a private ping pong lesson from like an Olympian in the U.S. for like $50. Like
That's
it's not that
so
expensive.
crazy.
It's because like there's no money in it. Like someone who's in the top 10 United States. It's also because the United States generally is not as good as other countries
Right.
at ping pong. But on the women's side they are. But on the men's side they're not. But you can get a player in the top 10 in North America to like if you live in their city, they'll come teach you a lesson. Like it's not that hard.
Well, that's the interesting thing. It's like, so I am 44, so I got to see this whole evolution of we didn't have internet, we got internet, and now internet's gotten to the point where the unobtainable, like conversations with actors and conversations with musicians and magicians and all these fantastic people, it's tangible, it's within reach. And like
Yeah.
you're saying, you want to learn something, all you have to do is Google it and find out how to get a hold of these people.
Yeah.
And, for a nominal fee, whatever the case may be, you can make it happen. So
Yeah.
I think that's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, also I think the lockdown has helped.
Yeah, the lockdowns helped a
in terms
lot.
of people's reachability, because a lot of people are just bored.
Yeah, well, I found you on TikTok. I was like, I know that man's face.
Yeah.
I know him, and I was like, oh yeah, all right, Superstore. I've seen you on Superstore. And then,
Yeah, I also think just advice for other people that are like in any kind of these fields, the same way you were saying that you're kind of learning through this podcast process, right?
mhm.
The reason first of all, I don't have anything going on. I'll talk to anybody. Also, I love podcasts, so I love the form itself. But I also think for anybody, I think this would apply to most people, that it's worth. There's sometimes you do things because I think it's worth learning from them. So like, I've done a fair amount of podcasts, but I have done podcasts with people where I wasn't sure if I really understood what the theme of the show was, or I wasn't sure if I could be that good at it or whatever. But part of it also I did it for was like, presumably as I, advance my career, it's possible that I'll be in positions where like I have to go on a TV show and like promote something. And I
Right.
don't really want that to be the first time that I do an interview.
Yeah. Well,
But
like for the reason why I started this was, one, there's so many interesting people out there,
yeah,
and two, I have a hard time speaking to people in person. So I was like, so how do I make this work? So
yeah,
for the longest time, it took quite a while for me to be comfortable to speak with a musician.
yeah,
They're new or they're well established, and then try to have a conversation with them and feel comfortable about it.
yeah,
So I was like, so what would knock down all of these walls? And I'm like, okay, I need to have conversations with complete strangers is what I need to do.
hmm,
And so through this format, I love it. I love it because I can review it and I can see how my body language is, and
uh-huh.
and then have a conversation, like a normal person.
So, I mean, you kind of sound like a sociopath that's like
I am a
assembling
normal person.
assembling
Okay.
a construction of a human being. I
I
will
am so over analytical.
I will
It's
analyze
horrible.
myself to give the impression of being a normal human being.
Yes, we have a friend. We believe he's an alien because he's never heard of anything, and he says
Well,
things that are very alien-like.
I was
So
going to ask you. So like if you're into concerts, what music are you into right now?
I listen to everything. It's not like one specific genre. I try to listen to the new stuff. A lot of new stuff grates on me, but my roots are like 90s hip hop, 80s hip hop, gangster rap,
Uh,
and
so wait,
you
are you
know, and
more are you not into like the native tongue 90s That's De La Soul, Tribe Called
Oh, I
Quest.
love Tribe and De La Soul, and
Okay.
yeah, like that whole period where you could actually get a whole story.
Yeah, I mean, '90s is the peak of storytelling rap.
Like I
Um,
I love that.
that's just not something anyone cares about now.
Yeah, nobody cares about stories anymore
Because I
because you can
think the
Google it.
last thing that I last album that I listened to that was like storytelling hip hop was a Common album where there's a Common album that tells a whole story about how his house got robbed and he doesn't, he's lost all this money, and then he has no idea who did it, and he was also angry because one of his favorite cassette tapes was stolen, and then he like got in his friend's car, and then his friend played the tape in his car,
No.
so he knew his friend had done it. It's like a full 4-part thing. I forget what it's called. And that and like have you heard of the British hip hop band The Streets?
Yes. Yes.
So there's an album by The Streets of like it's called A Grand Don't Come for Free, where it's about like he lost £1,000 that he was supposed to pay for the rent, and the whole album is about like how that spirals and gets worse and worse. Um, but then I would say in the last 10-15 years, like people don't really care about like telling a narrative in hip hop.
No, 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 they don't. And then I listened to a lot of indie bands and alternative, and of course, I grew up in Seattle when grunge was, just blowing out. So it was
Uh-huh.
Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Soundgarden, and there were so many of them. And
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to hear a lot of them live.
Uh-huh.
So that sticks with me. And then classic rock and some heavy metal, and I'm all over the place. I love
I think you
everything.
just gotta dig deeper into what's happening now. I bet there's stuff that's up
Yeah,
your
there's
alley.
some new things that I really really like. I can't think of the names off the top of my head, but there's some that I dove deep into, and
Yeah.
they're really really good.
I mean, last year I was obsessed with the Lana Del Rey album, Norman fucking Rockwell, which I think is just an incredible
That's
album.
a fantastic album.
Um, and that was one where it was literally number one on like a bunch of like year end lists. Oh, by
Hmm.
the way, I think I mean in 2019 I was obsessed with that album. um, and it was one of those things where I was like, I'll give it a listen since it's on the top of all these lists, but like I've never really cared about Lana Del Rey or whatever. And I think the California wildfires were happening at the same time, and there was something apocalyptic about that album that was just felt very much like the music you would listen to on a porch sipping wine as like the world just burns.
So you were in California during that time also.
Yes.
Did the fires affect you and your
Not
husband?
directly. Our area wasn't really hit by it too hard. It did affect production of like on I was on Pen 15. The thing I was shooting on Pen 15 happened while that was happening, and so actually my episode, I believe I shot two different scenes like 3 weeks apart or something, because some of the locations that they were going to use for the schedule uh, were affected by the wildfire, so they like had to move their whole schedule around. It was pretty rough. But I mean, it didn't really matter to me. But like my part of LA was not super bad, except just like it was bad to be outside and breathe.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was just dress rehearsal for the rest of 2021, 2020.
Yeah, you were practicing for all of 2020.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I'm happy. I don't know what it's gonna be like over the next 6 months, but like getting a vaccine is a little bit like I'm optimistic. Like uh I feel both optimistic and selfish in the sense that like I feel somewhat more protected by the vaccine, so I feel less affected by what decisions other people make in a way. I feel like I have a little more control over my life in a way, because now if I'm around somebody that's made really poor decisions, and let's say I'm in a situation where I can't distance myself or whatever, or I'm indoors with them for longer than I want to be,
Right.
I feel less subject to that person's choices, so I feel a little bit more independent and free.
Well,
That makes sense.
I think in a weird way, by getting the vaccine, you're essentially kind of taking back a little bit of control that was, what we all lost, which was
Yeah.
essentially our freedoms and doing normal everyday things.
Yeah.
So something as simple for me is to get the vaccine, and I can, take back some of that,
Yeah.
and start forming a, somewhat normal life again, and
Yeah.
get the ball rolling so I can go shoot concerts and go to LA to go meet friends. And
What is
you
the
know
status of concerts in Utah?
I know that we've got I know by August we've got a big festival coming up, so I'm feeling by August everything should be all right.
Uh-huh.
I just kind of, on the selfish side of things, I hope that you have to show that you got your vaccination.
Yeah.
Or there's some sort of control measure to
Yeah.
make sure that, things just don't get crazy
Yeah,
again.
it's going to be interesting to see how we deal with that stuff because the card that you get is very easily forgeable.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
And
definitely.
then like I like the idea, I guess, of a vaccine passport that's like the special app that lives on your phone. But I
Hmm.
also know that, you know, uh, sometimes we as human beings we make these systems that are like with good intentions to be like let's find a digital way to verify that people are
Yeah.
vaccinated, and then sometimes the systems get used in very nefarious ways.
Yeah, they really do. I think with something like that, that's, yes, it's a good idea, but it's not a good idea for the fact that somebody's going to be smart enough to reverse engineer all that to find out who hasn't been vaccinated,
Yeah,
and
I
that
mean,
could not be good for that person.
also just I'm not totally convinced that a technology that kind of like gives preference to people that can afford a smartphone,
Yeah,
like not everybody can afford an iPhone or an Android phone.
that's
So
true.
everybody that can't it's it's probably a small minority of the population, but it's probably a lot of people that won't be able to have a digital passport.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, maybe those people don't have enough money to buy a ticket to see, you know, Soundgarden or whatever. But at the same time, it's like I don't know. I feel we should be careful about setting. It's the kind of thing where like people will be like, "Well, everybody has a phone. Everybody could do it, right?" But it's like, well, that's really not totally true. Because like if my mom will never have a smartphone, and that's not. I mean, we could buy her one, but she will not. Like she has a flip phone with buttons on it, and she doesn't know how to check voicemail on it. So, my mom is never gonna have a digital passport. So, uh, you know, I don't want to have to like. I mean, how are we gonna get her in to see? I don't know, Tom Jones or whoever she wants to see in concert.
Yeah, I don't know. That's something that will hopefully be figured out, and it won't be too intrusive or.
Yeah, but I guess the thing is like, if you go to a concert now, now that you've had the vaccine, it does flip the tables a little bit. So like, if you're at the concert and someone lies and says they got the vaccine and they didn't, you're still like, you still have a measure of protection. It's like, whereas before, if like I have a fair number of friends who got COVID because someone in their like COVID bubble wasn't completely forthcoming about who they hung out with
Right.
between the last time they saw them and this time. I mean, so when you ask me what I was doing this whole year, like I haven't hung out with anybody this
Yeah, that's
entire year.
exactly what I've been doing.
Yeah,
I feel like I've been hibernating.
yeah.
Seriously, I haven't slept so much in my life.
And part of that was because I knew at a certain point in the fall that I might be called in to work these TV jobs, and I knew that they were doing very rigorous COVID testing. So I turned down even like, hey, we're gonna make a little social bubble and hang out with her. I turned all those down because um, these gigs were such that if I got any positive tests, I wouldn't be able to work the job.
Yeah.
So that pretty much sealed it for me in terms of also I'm
Well, I
not.
mean, your career is worth a little bit more than hanging out with friends at some point too.
I mean
So,
that's always true and will always be true. I mean, I also I'm mostly an introvert, so like,
Yeah, that's kind of how I am.
um,
Like concerts are. It took me a very long time to kind of be comfortable.
yeah,
I like if I were to go to a concert and they're like, you have to be among all the people
yeah.
on this side of the fence. I don't think I would go.
What?
Whereas I've got a little backstage pass
That's what I was gonna ask
and
you. What kind of access do you have?
all,
Oh, really?
all access.
Oh, wait, how do you? Wait, who's this? Someone's backing up a truck.
Somebody's backing up. They're coming to refill your inflatable hot tub.
Yes. By the way, the inflatable hot tub, I would encourage anyone to get.
Is it the one by Coleman?
They're all well, so they're all by the same Chinese manufacturer. They're sold by Coleman, Bestway, or Intex or something like that. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they're literally all the same hot tub. Um, and this is the third one I've had because I've returned two to Amazon because the first two I had like a little bit of a defect in the way they were designed,
Hmm.
and the air valve eventually leaks water. Um, and it's like part of the design. Like both of the first two that I had, there's a little one-way valve that's supposed to stop the water from coming out, and
Right.
the thing just like disintegrated. Um, and so this one I have, they actually sent me by mistake the next year's model, and it has a correction to that. So this one's been going. I've had for like
So
6 months.
now is the time for me to buy an inflatable hot tub.
Well, yes, and the thing I was gonna say was the very first one that I got was at the beginning of the lockdown, and it was I want to say they were in the $200 to $400 range, which I think is very reasonable with given how much use we've gotten
Yeah.
out of it. And then mid lockdown, they got up to like $1,200 just because of people price gouging on Amazon.
Well, that's like I needed a computer.
Yeah,
So I bought a pre-built computer,
yeah.
right? It was made by Asus. It was a ROG Strix something or other, but it had a 2080 Super in it, and I was like, "Oh, cool." But then I upgraded the RAM in it,
Uh huh.
and their motherboard only supported like up to 2666.
Uh huh.
And I'm like, "Well, that's not going to work." So I built an entire computer, and it cost an arm and a leg.
To build it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely
because
insane.
well, and also, what graphics card did you end up putting in it?
I ended up taking that 2080 Super out and
All
reused the
right.
2080 Super with a new motherboard and
Yeah.
everything else and
Yeah,
built it from
because
there.
well, also because good luck finding a graphics card these
Yeah, that's
days.
not happening because I was like, well, I'll just build this computer for my son so he
Yeah,
can use it for school or whatever.
yeah,
But yeah, you can't find anything for a good price
yeah. And
at
it
all.
used to be you used to be able to build one for like half the cost of what.
Yeah, no,
It's
now
funny
you're
because I've actually seen some people will buy like a Dell or an Alienware or a Souther whatever just so that
yeah
they can get
with like a
the
3080 in it.
just so they can get that card.
Yeah, because it's cheaper to buy the entire pre-build than it is to
Yeah.
buy the card.
Well, that's strange to me because it used to be that you paid extra for the convenience of having them build it for you. But
Not anymore.
yeah.
So
Uh,
you had a question about my access.
oh, so how do you like? What do you have to do to be like? I'm a photographer. Give me access to this concert.
So what I did about 12 years ago when I was just barely getting retired, the government said you're not able to work, you can't do this. I was like, all right, well I'm gonna go nuts if I don't find something to do. There was a new radio station that started here in Salt Lake, and I had a camera, and I was like, hey, can I come by and do some pictures? Because I saw they were doing a lot of meet and greets. It was like Secondhand Serenade and One Republic and stuff like that. And they're like, yeah, okay. So I showed up, and then that summer I think I shot like 14 concerts.
Oh wow.
So through them, they give me the access passes, and they call me up and they go, we've got this going on and this going on, and in turn I give them photos. So
Do you are you able ever like how many like major concert venues are there in Salt Lake?
there is the Maverick Center. There's the one that was the Delta Center, which is now whatever the cable provider is. There is the Salt Palace, and there is God, there's another one. There's like four or five, and then there's some smaller venues, like Red Butte
So,
Gardens has an amphitheater.
are you ever able to get like early access to a venue to like set anything up, or is it just all flash on your camera? Or
No, I don't use any flash. And the trick behind concert photography is, you've just got to be lucky.
yeah. You just take so many shots that you
Yeah,
hopefully.
there's so many shots. It's not like if I were to do your portrait, you and your husband, where we
Yeah,
can set it up and fix the
yeah,
lighting and make it look right. It's kind of a nightmare because you can shoot an entire concert and, you know, 300-400 shots, and then maybe six or seven turn out the way you want it to turn out, where they're nice and crisp and the colors are good. And
right.
because
I was asking because I'm always fascinated by NBA photographers
yeah, I don't
because
know how they do that.
well they get to set up flashes all around the like ring of the arena
That's
that are
interesting.
that are connected to their camera. So a lot of times somebody will be like baseline shooting up at somebody dunking, and they're able to capture basically like their flash goes off like way above them at the same time that they take the shot.
That's crazy.
So if you're live at a game, you can see this whole like ring of flash. Like there's flashes coming from their camera sometimes too.
Yeah,
But
I go to a lot of Utah Jazz games
oh, cool.
because I've got
Because
a buddy of mine is the DJ for them, and then
oh,
I go to
also Utah Jazz doing very well this year.
they're doing awesome.
Yeah.
They're doing absolutely awesome. The Utah Jazz Bear has his own TikTok.
Wow. uh, Actually, if anyone's interested, it's worth looking up um, a photographer set up instead of a regular flash. I think at a Minnesota Timberwolves game, he set up infrared.
Hmm.
So he took a whole series of only infrared shots at a game, and they're incredible because it didn't like there's no other light. Um, it's just the it's like shots from an actual NBA game where as if the entire stadium was dark and there was just like one spotlight on somebody because that's the only infrared source.
Oh,
And
that'd
he
be
took that,
awesome.
and they're incredible photos.
And you
They're
said
really
that
cool.
was for the Timberwolves?
I think so. Because I remember Kevin Garnett being in one of them. I think, but I might be getting it confused because I know someone also took infrared photos of some of the African American players in the league because it really like highlighted their tattoos. That was a separate project. But somebody took action photos of the NBA with an infrared camera, and the photos are really cool.
I'm gonna have to look that up because that sounds
Yeah,
really neat.
yeah. I mean, that'd be something to try at a concert. I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, that'd be sweet if they allowed me to set anything up.
Yeah.
I can't use flashes or anything, so
Well, so
did
the
you?
infrared ones would not.
Yeah, the infrared wouldn't affect them.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, now I have ideas.
yeah. So concerts. Hopefully, so you hopefully will be back in the groove of shooting stuff.
Yeah, hopefully towards middle to the end of this year, because I
Cool.
know we've got a big thing coming up with the baby and what's his freaking name?
The baby is one that would like show up on Spotify, and I'm like, who's this? What
Yeah,
is
who's
this?
the baby? Yeah,
Yeah.
there's it's like a whole
Yeah.
list of people that are doing this festival, and so that
There's a lot of
should be interesting.
there's a lot of duh somethings, and there's a lot of lil
Lil
people.
and ASAP.
ASAP, yes. ASAP, I think is a whole crew of.
Yeah,
It's like
it's a whole crew. Like I've met ASAP Rocky and ASAP Ferg and a few others. Yeah, they had to explain it to me
but I
because
mean, this is
I didn't
just
get
what
it.
this is just what happens, you know.
Yeah, we need our own crew.
Because your parents couldn't tell the difference between Soundgarden and Stone Temple Pilots.
No, no, my dad can. No, he wouldn't know anything.
Yeah,
Like he knows what he likes, but yeah, no, he couldn't tell the difference between the two. I'm almost
yeah.
positive.
And you know, I can't really tell the difference between like the Who and the Guess Who. No, I don't know. Whatever his generation is.
Well,
I oh, go ahead.
this has been fun. We're hitting an hour and a half. This has been amazing.
Yeah, it's been really fun.
So rumor has it that you're going to be headed out to Salt Lake here within the
Yeah,
next few months or so. So
I'm
hopefully I
visiting.
can meet up with you out there.
Yeah, I'm visiting some friends in July. Hope that's contingent on and everything
Yeah,
not. But I can use any Salt Lake City restaurant tips. Um,
absolutely.
you know, all the things to do tips and all that.
Okay. Well, I'll be happy to do that for you. And then hopefully I'll be out in California within the next month or two. So,
Oh, cool.
yeah, I got to go see some friends. And he's like, you got to come to the Magic Castle. You got to have the beef Wellington. I'm like, okay. All
Oh,
right.
cool. Yeah, let
That
me know when
sounds
you
like
go
a
to the
plan.
castle.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I will be in Texas for 2 weeks in April and May, uh, which I announced on my TikTok as well. I'm actually going to canvas for a politician in Texas.
Oh, nice.
It's my first time doing any kind of like volunteer work along those lines. So if
Like
anyone
political
yeah,
type stuff.
yeah. So if anyone's in Dallas, Fort Worth, and wants to meet me and help me volunteer, hit me up. But I've never done it before. It's mostly I just wanted to like learn about the process, and I just wanted to be more active than I'm trying to not as much be this person that just like complains about stuff from my keyboard.
Yeah, see, a lot of my I'm paying a little bit more attention now after this last election,
Uh-huh.
and knowing that our voices and our decisions, they're important.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say no matter what side of the spectrum you fall on, because you probably have listeners of
Yeah,
whatever side, right? I will say that like what happened in Georgia was like Georgia was not a state that I ever thought would be have two Democratic senators in it. Um, and Georgia was the state that like a lot of people wrote off basically for any kind of political effect. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of states that were just like, oh, it's always going to be blue, it's always going to be red. You know, I'm on the blue side, but like, if people want to come to California and try to like make a case for their thing, even instead of just deciding that California is always going to be blue, I think the more people are actually like active in politics, I think is better than
yeah,
just like complaining about it on Twitter.
yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, there's a lot of things we can do just as people, Americans, and as far as voting, and there a lot of things can be handled a little bit better than what it's been handled, lately.
Well, also
So
I think that if this is my belief, and it might change after I go do this 2 week thing, right? But my hunch is that if you're actually engaged, really anything, right? Like probably people make assumptions about what it's like to be in the military, having never been in it, right? Um, and the more you're actually exposed to what the experience of doing something is like, for example, like volunteering for a politician or
mhm.
being in the military, then I actually think probably anytime that I've experienced something like that, my opinions about how that thing should be done become more nuanced because it's like I'm much less critical of like television and movies than I used to be because I just know how hard it is to make any of them, and the fact that any of them turn out to be good is almost complete luck. So I just a lot of times now, having made like short films, directed a short film, been in a bunch of short films, a lot of times now when I see a movie, I'm just like, congratulations on finishing that movie because that is so difficult to do that like I mean even if it's a terrible movie it's like hey you accomplished something like you finished it.
Yeah, see,
um
I look at that at the same way too. My buddy Shane put out a short film called Cookie, and he wrote it and directed it and produced it, and he's happy with it. But I think I'm more happy than he is because I'm like,
yeah, well because he sees probably all the things he wished he could have done differently.
yeah, no kidding, no
Yeah,
kidding. And I look at it as a finished piece of work, and I'm like, I don't know how you accomplished that. That's
yeah.
amazing in
And
my eyes.
and by the same token like I would say the vast majority of us have an exposure to probably like 1% of what being in the military is like. And so the same way that like uh, like this is a question I would get a lot about Superstore. People would be like, "Hey, when are they having open auditions for Superstore so I can come try out to be on the show?" And I'd be like, that's not really how it works.
That's not.
That's not how it works.
It's not your local playhouse on a lot of
Yeah.
things.
And similarly, I assume people have, opinions about the military that are as well informed as that.
Yeah, yeah, that there are, or they've come to their own conclusions on, well, no, I'm totally fine if I do this, this, and this. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
no, no,
Yeah.
there's a testing process. There's things that have to fall in place first.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of education. That's kind of what I wanted to do with this is just, like I got a bunch of information from you,
Yeah.
things that you shared with me, and verbiage and just things I didn't know,
Yeah,
and
I mean, I think a big lesson is that and I think this could be applied to anybody that's listening, because everybody has like a job that they do that people from the outside just can't understand
yeah.
what it is. It's like the same thing about when, like, probably everybody should be forced to wait tables for 6 months,
I believe that a hundred
you know,
percent.
so that they're
Yes.
never rude to another waiter again.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I waited tables when I was 16 for, I
Yeah.
mean, I made good money and I met some really cool people. But yeah, I refused to be mean to another waiter or waitress,
Yeah.
anybody in the food service industry, because I cooked and waited tables and bussed and served, and I did that for a while.
Yeah.
So I refuse to be mean mean
Yeah.
to anybody that's having a rough day in a restaurant, because I'm like, I know what they're dealing with. I know
Mhm.
what's going on in the back.
Also,
So
by being mean to them, it's not going to make it any better.
no, because they can do horrible things to your food.
Yeah.
Hmm. Well, Chris, this has been fun. I hope to have you back. I look forward to hearing about your adventure down in Texas.
Hmm.
And if you want to bring your husband on, we can just have a chat. The
Sure.
three of us or whoever. This is highly informal, but I really, really enjoyed it.
Me
I
too.
appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah.
You were
Thanks for the
my
invitation.
my third guest.
Hey, I'm in the top 3 guests you've had so
Top
far.
3 guests. Yesterday, I had a young man, 23 years old with Down syndrome. I don't know if you've seen him on TikTok,
Oh no.
but he's a photographer and he travels, and so he's a traveling photographer. Does all these landscapes, and just beautiful work.
Oh,
It's
cool.
fantastic.
Awesome.
So he was really interesting to talk to. You've been fantastic to talk to. You've got a lot of stories to tell. So I appreciate you for coming on today.
Thanks,
And
man.
if you've got my number, send me a text, and then I can keep in touch with you for if you are able to make it out to Salt Lake.
Yeah, for sure.
So
We'll do.
that would be awesome too. So we're gonna call that a wrap on this.